So, if you're a beginner and serious about learning piano, there are a few concepts you need to understand right from the start. These are not tricks or shortcuts. These are the foundations, the habits that actually make you learn faster, stay consistent, and avoid years of frustration. I spent over 20 years studying, performing, and teaching classical piano, and these 5 things come up again and again whether I'm working with complete beginners, intermediate, or even advanced students. So let's dive in. So the first point is to have goal-oriented practicing sessions. Let's say you're coming home from work or school. You do your laundry, you eat, whatever. And now it's time to practice piano. Do you know exactly what you need to do when you sit down? Are you practicing the whole piece or just one section? Are you doing separate hands or hands together? More importantly, do you know why you're doing it that way? Goal-oriented practice means that you have a clear, specific task every time you sit at the piano. You're not just playing the piece. You're solving problems. What should be better by the end of this session? And what should I improve in this week? So for example, let's take the Chopin Nocturne Opus 9 number 2. If you want to have a goal-oriented practicing session, first of all, understand where you might have problems. And from my experience, most of students have problems in these measures. So a goal-oriented practicing session would be to start from the left hand alone and making sure that is completely absorbed in your muscle memory. And then if you want to do very specific goal-oriented practice, you might start from the end of the measure backwards. So then play the last 2 chords, the last 3, the last 4. By the end of the day, you're gonna have fixed something, and this will improve your long-term knowledge of the piece. The second thing is write the numbers, the finger numbers. Always make sure you have a pencil next to the piano and use it. I can't stress this enough. So many mistakes I've seen lessons come down to the one thing. You didn't write the finger numbers, or you're not following the finger numbers that are written on the score. Finger numbers are essential. They're part of your technique and your memory. In fact, the brain often builds stronger connections through numbers than it does through notes. We've been counting since we were toddlers. Numbers are fast and automatic. I often think of fingerings before I even think of notes when I'm working on a passage. So here's what you do. Write in or highlight fingerings that aren't clear. Always check that what you're actually playing matches what's written. If you don't, your brain gets confused. It sees one thing and feels another. That causes hesitation and mistakes. There are some key fingerings in the left hand that connects each chord. For example, here in the first set, we have 2 for the E flat and 4 for the B flat. So the 2 acts as a pivot and connects to the second chord to the 4. This will happen throughout each set of chords continuously. So you're gonna have 2, 4, 2, 3, and then 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 3. So Each second chord would have either 3 or 4 as a starting finger. You need to make sure that you have made the decision for each chord whether you're gonna play the second chord either with 3 or with 4. So make the decision, write it on the score. Sometimes you will find fingerings that are already there. This would help a lot. Sometimes you will have to find fingerings that are on the score. But in any case, try to make the decision and stick to them. And if you don't have them, write them. Fingerings is both an art and a science, and great pianists work on it their whole life. So keep a pencil next to your piano and use it. Third point is left hand is key. Most of the time the left hand carries the harmony, the accompaniment and the structure. Sometimes it even has secondary melodies or important counterpoint. But it's also the hand that students neglect the most. It's usually weaker than the right. It's harder to memorize and it's more difficult to control. In my experience as a pianist and as a teacher, more than half of students' mistakes happen because the left hand is properly absorbed. So I often ask my students to start their practicing session with the left hand alone. It's a great warm-up. It's a test of memory, and it gives structure to the entire piece. You should be able to sing the left hand line from memory. Like if someone asks you, how does the left hand of that piece sound? You should be able to outline it with your voice, the same way you could be able to outline a melody. In the case of the Nocturne, B, G, F, G, F, E, B, G, in the same way you should be able to say that the left hand of the Nocturne is E, G, this also applies for the bass, the pinkies. These are all inner melodies, and the more you can recognize them and sing them, the more you absorb them, and the deeper knowledge this creates. Because here's the truth, you will never have full control of a piece unless you can play the left hand alone by memory. So start there. Fourth thing is memory doesn't last forever. You need maintenance. So you practice a difficult passage, you know it. You spend a lot of time on it. Great, amazing. So you move on. You stop checking separate hands, you stop testing your memory, you start focusing on something else, and then randomly, boom, mistake again. That part used to be fine, but there is a problem with that. Memory fades, and anything difficult that you have learned requires ongoing maintenance. This applies to you and it applies to the top concert pianist in the world. We don't just learn a piece once, we maintain it. It's boring, it's repetitive, but it's what keeps your playing reliable. So here's what I recommend. Outline the most 3 or 4 or 5 difficult measures or parts of the piece. Create a checklist, and every day you sit at the piano and say, I'm gonna go over them. Let's start with fine. Kind of fine. So these were my 3 or 4 passages in the checklist. So before I try to play the entire piece from beginning until the end, I make sure I do ongoing maintenance on those. This is a game changer. If you want not only to learn a piece, but to keep it in great shape, to have it in your repertoire, and being able to perform it every time someone asks you to. Fifth thing is progressive overload with the metronome. To build speed intelligently. So think of this like strength training. You don't walk into the gym and try to deadlift your max weight. You start with a weight you can control, a base weight, and then each session you add a small amount, 2.5 or 5 pounds. So you barely notice the increase, but over time you get stronger and stronger. That's how your body learns. And that's exactly how your brain and fingers adapt to speed. So when you're working on a fast passage, don't just try to play it fast. Find the slowest tempo where you have full control, both hands, correct fingerings, and decent sound. That's your base speed. And then every day add 5 BPM, or every session. And so you're gonna have a clean, controlled increase of speed. And it gets easier and easier. The hardest part is to find the bass speed. The first 20-30 BPM would be the hardest one. So for example, let's put the metronome at 70. Then we bump it up at 75. Feel pretty much the same. And then at 80, we're gonna start to feel a little of a difference. It still will feel more or less the same. Once we arrive to 5x5, we arrive to 100, 110. So in about a week or two, we are already at full speed. And then from that moment on, you can switch off the metronome and start to phrase naturally. So use the metronome to build speed with progressive overload. These 5 concepts are not flashy, they're not hacks, but they're habits, and I've seen them make the biggest difference over 20 years as a classical pianist and teacher. So practice smart. Use your pencil, write the fingerings, respect the left hand, maintain what you have learned, and build your speed with progressive overload. That's how you grow. Thanks for watching, hit the subscribe button, and if you're serious about improving your piano game, you are in the right YouTube channel. See you next time.